we covered the white dudes for Kamala cringe fest the other night. I was going to do this that night, but we didn't get to it because the show was running like 18 hours at that point. Scott Galloway, who is a professor at NYU Stern, he probably gave the most infuriating speech of the entire night. So much so that it's worth doing a segment on, because you just have to ask, when he talks about the economy, when he talks about jobs, when he talks about Ukraine, when he talks about Israel, how's the weather that far up your own ass, Scott? And what's really surprising about what he says about the economy is, he's this Zionist pro State Department maniac. But he just wrote a book and he's been going around doing lectures arguing that Gen Z has a right to be angry because the boomers really hoarded all the money and they're gatekeeping opportunity for the next generation. So somebody whose whole shtick is saying, hey, they have a point and things aren't that great. It's amazing what he says here, which just completely contradicts everything he's been saying in that regard on behalf of promoting Kamala.
Scott Galloway, I teach at NYU. I consider myself a man, and I think my job is to provide and protect, and the way that manifests in this age is to ensure that Vice President Harris is in the White House. I'll touch on three things. First is the economy. I don't think the Democrats have done a great job messaging around the economy. Here's the data. Since 2020, real GDP growth across the G7 has averaged 3.5%. Germany and the UK laggards less than 2%. Real GDP growth since 2020 in the United States has been 8.5%. It has been double what the average GDP growth across the G7 would say. Well, the economy is running hot. That must mean there's terrible inflation. Our inflation is the lowest across the G7. So let me get this. The Goldilocks chocolate and peanut butter combination of the strongest growth with the lowest inflation. What is the result of that? 15.4 million new jobs created in 3.5 years, more jobs than have been created in any 8-year tenure of any presidency. Fun fact, China has shed $6 trillion in market capitalization in the last 5 years. The S&P in the United States has doubled. There are 195 nations, 194 of them all wish they were the United States. The Biden-Harris administration has put on a master class and how to pull off the strongest economy in the world. The best investment in modern history is the investment the Biden-Harris administration have made in Ukraine.
Okay, so we'll pause. I know that's why it deserved its own segment apart from the white dudes for Harris cringe fest. Okay, this motherfucker. Okay. All right. Well, especially what's infuriating is he's not like these talking head journalists who are just kind of reading what they've been handed. He's an economist. He knows better than this. He, especially given the focus of his lectures regarding the way the economy has been rigged to favor a boomer cohort that's hoarded all this wealth and opportunity. He knows better than this. He knows that GDP growth that only goes into the stock market, that only goes to the investor class, that only goes to the upper 1% means fucking nothing. Nothing for the vast majority of the public. That GDP growth is all being funneled to the upper 1%. The upper 1%, this statistic just dropped. The upper 1% now has more wealth than the entire middle class. Forget about the lower class. The entire middle class, the upper 1%, has more wealth than. You're going to start talking about GDP growth because he knows better. He knows that doesn't mean anything. He knows it's about how that growth is distributed throughout the population. Inflation is lower than it is in these other G7 countries. That doesn't mean it's good. And these other G7 countries, guess what they have? Healthcare. They have free college. Inflation is not going to mean you can't go to a doctor in those countries. It's not going to mean you can't go to school. It does here. Misty, anything?
The idea that he just said that one of the best investments was the war in Ukraine.
Oh, we're going to he continues with that.
Okay, then I'll just wait because I have so many things to say.
oh yeah, no.
The level of scumbaggery it takes to say some shit like that is off the charts.
That and Israel, your head's going to explode.
Oh.
Yeah, no, this segment was unfucking believable.
All right. Here we go.
For $60 billion a year, approximately 10% of our military budget, we have taken out a third of Russia's kinetic power. We have defanged the ridiculous notion that this was a ferocious army, and we have given Xi real pause not to invade Taiwan. And most of that money has come back to red states, to manufacturers and weapons suppliers. This is the greatest investment in the history of the modern economy. As a Jew, a proud Jew, I was rattled by the events of October 7th. Quite frankly, I was very disappointed in some of the rhetoric coming out of the far left of my own party. I haven't become a one-issue voter, but I'm very concerned about Israel. And here's the bottom line on Biden-Harris as it relates to Israel. No one has been a more steadfast ally of Israel than Biden-Harris. Within days of October 7th, the Hamas was hoping to inspire a multi-front war. The Biden-Harris administration immediately deployed 2 carrier strike forces and told Iran and its proxies to sit the fuck down. Nobody has been stronger on Israel than Biden and Harris. And all this tough macho talk about the notion that finish the job. Well, guess what? In addition to winning this war, which we will, we need an enduring, lasting peace. And who do you trust to figure out the nuance and the diplomacy of a lasting peace in the Middle East? Secretary Blinken, Secretary Austin, and President Harris. This is how we Zionists get an enduring peace in the Middle East. Finally, I raised 2 boys.
Okay.
The Zionist talking about peace. Go fuck yourself. Seriously, go fuck yourself. That is so ridiculous. But the Ukraine thing, yeah, it's the best investment. He reminds me of Lindsey Graham. Remember when Lindsey Graham was like,
oh, yeah.
Listen, the return on investment here is great. No American lives have been lost. You sound like an absolute neocon scumbag. That's what you sound like. I mean, just unbelievable. And it's done nothing. They've got nothing. You've completely wiped out an entire generation of Ukrainian men. Now it's a bunch of old dudes out there fighting the war, and even some women. And for what? What have you done? You have done nothing. Russia doesn't give a fuck about you. Their economy's doing great. They're doing fine. Like, have you, damaged them slightly militarily, economically? I'm sure probably. They're not bothered by this at all. You've completely destroyed Ukraine for nothing. And he's out here calling it the best investment. Seriously, there's not enough go fuck yourselves for this guy. What a scumbag.
Well, that gives you an idea of how these people think about Ukraine.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
They don't care.
You're cannon fodder. That's it.
Even if you think that it's a just war, which is really not the argument he's making. He's making an argument of return on investment. It's a good investment. But even if you thought it was a just war, maybe spare a word for the devastation of the Ukrainian people, of their country, of, as you say, an entire generation of Ukrainian men that's been wiped out. I mean, to just talk about it like, look at the interest rate. Chris Hedges in America, the Farewell Tour, spent some time talking about how one of the reasons we keep ginning up these wars is because the last real manufacturing jobs left in the country is arms manufacturing. Mm-hmm. And he just openly says that. He says that's going to bring manufacturing jobs to the red states. So a benefit of this is, well, we keep our manufacturing going and we keep those jobs there by wiping out Ukraine. It's a great investment. It's a great return on investment. Mm-hmm. On the Israel front, well, I hate to tell you this, Scott. I don't know if you've been reading the headlines. Iran's not sitting the fuck down. And even before this, okay, there have been developments since he said this, although it's only a couple of days ago. A lot of this was already in motion. You do remember Iran sending hundreds of rockets at Israel about a month ago, right? So no, they have not been sitting down. But even if you favor this kind of foreign policy, it's really not an argument for them. What? Trump is going to be less vile in this area than you would like? No, he's going to make you Zionist scumbags very happy with what he would do if he were in power. There is no real choice. Now what else is very interesting in regards to what we were saying before about who's running the country? You notice he mentions Blinken and Austin as the people to trust to make the peace before he says President Harris. So he knows what's up. He knows who's actually running this country. He knows she's a figurehead. I feel like that was a Freudian slip that he listed them before the candidate that he's supposedly speaking on behalf of.
And imagine saying Lloyd Austin and Antony Blinken and then like peace. That makes zero sense, my guy.
Well, and sure, that's who we trust to negotiate a peace, given how well they've been doing with cultivating peace over the last 4 years. Doesn't the world look peaceful to you?
Totally. Yes.
Look
at all the peace, guys. It's amazing.
Look at pieces breaking out everywhere.
Yeah. There's no like threat of nuclear annihilation currently. We aren't currently at war with multiple different countries engaged in a couple different genocides, illegally occupying who knows how many countries. None of that's going on, guys. It's very peaceful.
All right. So the end of this is just kind of cringe. Where
this has all been cringe, my guy.
Yeah, more cringe, even more cringe, because he invites the king of cringe, Mr. Mark Hamill, to come back on the stream. So let's see.
I'm raising two men. Whether we want it or not, the president is the premier role model for young men and women around the world. I am entirely certain President Harris would never mock the disabled. I'm even more certain that a President Harris would not have sex with a porn star and then try and cover it up illegally with campaign funds. I'm entirely sure.
Okay, listen, man. Trump shouldn't go here, but I'm not Trump. You really want to get into sexual history when the candidate is Kamala Harris, who was what, 64-year-old Willie Brown's mistress at the time that she was with him? He was like 64. He was still married.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I think it's wrong to point to a woman and say she slept her way to the top, but in this case, it does have the virtue of being true. So I don't know how much you want to invoke someone's sexual past when you're running against Kamala Harris.
Well, and that's the thing. Nico brought it up on Twitter. He's like, if we're going to talk about Trump paying off this porn star, are we not going to talk about Kamala Harris and her affair with Willie Brown? And I don't give a shit about either one of them. I don't care. The only thing I think bears any conversation, if at all, is the fact that Kamala Harris used that affair for personal and professional advancement.
Exactly.
And that's a problem.
So let's see Mark Hamill's little cameo here.
Ugh.
That a President Harris will have one marriage and be a wonderful mother for all of those like me out there whose stepmother played a wonderful role in their lives. She is a wonderful mother. I invite all of you like me who have spent the majority of their life talking the talk but not walking the walk to decide if this is a principle, not just an opinion. And the difference between the two is to sacrifice. So I want to do that right now. There's different ways to contribute your time, your treasure, and your talent. I'm going to match that $50,000, or I'm going to put up a $50,000 match, but I'm a selfish person. I need something in return. One of my heroes is on this call, and I'm asking this hero to turn on his mic and say the following in exchange for $50,000, and that is the following. I'm Luke Skywalker. I'm here to rescue you. I'm waiting, Mark. I'm waiting.
Can someone unmute Mark?
What a dork.
Can we unmute him?
There we go. I'm Luke Skywalker, and I'm here to rescue you, Mr. Galloway. You've got
Thanks
it.
very much. I'll finish where I ended. My name is Scott Galloway. I teach at NYU. I am a man. We protect and we provide. That is what we do.
Yeah, as cringe as promised. Yeah, just This is Mark Hamill's a great example. If you don't die a hero, you live long enough to be the villain.
Yeah. He's such a dork. It's that whole thing, the whole white dudes for Kamala it's so corny and forced and awkward. And I mean, it's just, I mean, as somebody who doesn't give a shit about electoral politics at all, I don't care. I don't care. All of this is fantastic entertainment for me. This is like the most entertaining election cycle in a very long time. And I mean, I'll take it for what it's worth. But I mean, all of this stuff is so fucking ridiculous.
Please clap.